Okay, so in section 3.4, we're going to be dividing decimals. You set up a division problem just like you do normal. So the first number goes on the inside. So this would be 4.32 divided by 3.6. So the rule with dividing decimals is that the number on the outside cannot be a decimal, because if we had to try to figure out how many times 3.6 went into something, it would be difficult. So I'm going to move this one place to make it 36. And then I'm going to also move this one place. So whatever you do on the outside, you have to do on the inside. And then you bring the decimal point up right away. And that decimal point stays there. It doesn't move around. Sometimes people have an easier time if they envision this. Now our problem is kind of like 36 on the outside and 43.2 on the inside. I've moved my decimal point. So now you go through your questions and you ask yourself, well, how many times does 36 go into 4? Well, 36 does not go into 4. So above that 4, I put a 0. And then you ask yourself, how many times does 36 go into 43? And it goes into 43 only one time. So I put a 1 there. 1 times 36 is 36. And then I subtract. 43 minus 36 gives me 7. And then I bring down my 2. Now I ask myself, how many times does 36 go into 72? And it goes in there twice, because 36 times 2 is 72. 7 times 36 is 72. And I'm done with my problem. So 4.32 divided by 3.6 is 1.2. Now, if we were using estimation, 4.32 would round to 4, and 3.6 would probably round to 4. What's 4 divided by 4 is 1. And notice how close 1 and 1.2 are. So that's where estimation comes in handy. Okay. In letter B, same situation. I've got the 12.95 on the outside. And then the 1.25 on the inside, or on the outside. Sorry, I can't talk. And then the 125, we need to make this a whole number, so we're going to move our decimal spot twice. And we're going to move that decimal point up. Okay, and then just so visually, it might be helpful to visualize it like this. Okay, so we're really asking ourselves, how many times does 125 fit into 1,295? Then we know that 125, I don't know where you guys want to see this, does not fit into 1, so I put a 0 here. 125 does not fit into 12, so I put a 0 above the 12. But 125 does fit into 129, and it fits in there one time. 1 times 125 is 125. When I subtract, I get a 4. Then I bring down my 5. Does 125 fit into 45? And the answer is no. So I put a 0 here. Once I get past that decimal, though, I can add another 0 and bring it down. How many times does 125 fit into 450? Well, this is where I'm going to guess and check. I'm going to guess 3 times. And when I multiply this, I get 375. And I know that I can't fit another one on there, so I'm going to put a 3 here. And when I subtract, I get a 75. I'm going to bring down another 0. And I'm going to take 125 times I'm just kind of estimating. If 3 gave us 375, I'm going to try 6 times. 6 times 5 is 30. 6 times 2 is 12, plus 5 is 15. And I get exactly 750. So then I would put a 6 here. 6 times 125 is 750. And I subtract them and I get that 0. So I know my answer is going to be 10.36, but a positive divided by a negative is a negative. Okay, so now I'm going to have you do C on your. Okay, so the first thing here is that I have to move this one spot. So it gets moved to one spot. Does 42 go into 3? And the answer is no. Does 42 go into 37? And the answer is no. Does 42 go into 378? And this is where you just do a guess or check thing. And so I am going to guess 42 times 10 would give me 420. That's pretty close. So I'm going to take 42 times 9. 9 times 2 gives me that 18. 9 times 4 is 36 plus 1 is 37. So that puts me right on the money. So 9 times 42 is 378. And when I subtract, I get 0. So my answer is 0.9, which is actually what most of you arrived at. Okay. Okay, so now we're going to do letter D together. And I have 8.28 divided by 4.6. And I have to move this one place. Put that up there. Okay, so now we're asking ourselves, how many times does 46 go into 82? Well, actually, it does not go into 8, but it goes into 82 only once. Sometimes you think it can go in there twice, but that would give us 92. So when I subtract here, I get 36. And then I bring down this 8. I have to guess how many times 36 or 46 can go into 368. One thing that I think about is 46 is really close to 50. So when I'm doing my guessing and estimating, I would count by 50s. So 50, 100, 150, 200, 250, 300, 350. So that brings me to 7. So if I did 46 times 7, give me a 42. 4 times 7 is 28 plus 2 is 32. So you guys can see that I'm just a little bit short. But if I add another 46 on there, it brings me up to 368. So it's not 7 times, it's 8 times. 8 times 46 is 368. I get 0. That's 1.8. Okay. So I want you guys, and then if you were checking this, I mean, this is pretty close to 8. You could round it to compatible numbers. 8 divided by 4 gives you 2. 1.8 is close to 2. So that's kind of where your estimation comes in. Okay, why don't you guys try to do letter E? So this is a problem that we can definitely use estimation for. Oh man, it's all fuzzy again. Trying to get the lighting right. Go. Okay. So let's estimate this one before we actually do the problem. 18.4 has to be decided by something that's close to 1.75. In my brain, I know that I can take 18 and I can divide it by 2, and I arrive at 9. So estimation, we should get an answer that's close to 9. So I'm just going to show you here. This is the array of answers that you guys ended up at. So just by knowing what our number should be, it should be close to 9. What answers could we kick out of here? What do you guys think?
1.56.
Yep.
1.056.
Yep.
105.6.
Yep.
0.9.
Yep. It's too small.
And
And
16.
yeah, maybe these ones we're not quite sure just because they're not too far off, right? Okay, so we'll leave it at this. But anyways, if you guys, and I'm not picking on anyone, okay, a lot of different answers were given. You weren't the only one that made a mistake. But if you got one of these answers that we crossed off right away, you could have used estimation to tell you that your answer was off. Okay, and that's a big thing. You want to just kind of see if there are any red flags. So now I'm going to take this problem, 18.48 divided by 1.75. And I'm going to move my decimal point twice. So really I'm dealing with 175. Okay, does 175 fit into 1? No. Does it fit into 18? No. Does it fit into 184? And the answer is yes, it fits in there one time. So above the 4, I put a 1. And then I'm going to do some subtraction here. 14 minus 5 gives you that 9. And that's it. So then I have to bring down my 8. And you have to ask yourself, does 175 fit into 98? And it doesn't. So above the 8, I have to add a 0. Okay. And then I can add a 0 here and bring it down. Now I have to figure out how many times does 175 fit into 980. And I'm just going to take a guess. I think I'm going to try 5 times. Times 5. 5 and 5 is 25. This is 35, 36, 37. And this is 5, 6, 7, 8. So 875. So when I borrow, this gives me a 10. This becomes a 7, and that's a 1. So 105. So I know that I did that correctly. And I'm going to have to bring down another 0. So obviously you can go on there a couple more times, or at least one more time. So 175 times 6, that would give me my 30, my 0 there. 3 or 6 times 7 is 42 plus 3 is 45. And 6 times 1 is 6 plus 4 is 10. So 1050. So that's right on the money. So this would be a 10.6. Oh, shoot. And I did this last time too. I forgot to write the 5 up here and then the 6. When you subtract, you get a 0. So our answer is 10.56, but you had a positive divided by a negative. So we get a negative. Make sure to check that at your final answer. Any questions on that part? Okay. So the next section are dividing integers by decimals. So an integer is just a positive or negative whole number. And so we need to take a whole number and divide it by a decimal. So we put that number on the inside. So that's a 9. 9 divided by 1.25. We have to move 2 places. But sometimes this is confusing because 9 doesn't have a decimal point. Well, guess what? That decimal point is right here. And now we need to move it. So this is 1, 2. I'm going to extend this out. I'm going to bring this up right away. If there are nothing there, we are just going to add zeros. Okay. So now you're asking yourself, how many times does 125 fit into 9? It does not fit into 9. How many times does 125 fit into 90? It does not fit into 90. How many times does 125 fit into 900? And know that 100 would fit into 909 times, so it's going to be less than 9. Let's try 7, because all those 25s would add up. 7 times 5 is 35, 14, 15, 16, 17, and this would give you an 8. So pretty close, but not quite. And when I subtract, I get 25. I'm going to bring down that 0. And this is a nice number to work with. We know that 125 fits into 250 twice. So our answer is just 7.2. So the only reason that these are different is because you had a whole number. You have to move that decimal point, that understood decimal point, and add those zeros. So why don't you guys try letter D? So on this one, we have a negative 12. I just kind of ignore that negative. The 1.6 goes on the outside. Need to move it over one spot, move it over, add your 0, bring that decimal point up so you can see it. Does 16 go into 1? It does not. Does 16 go into 12? It does not. Does 16 go into 120? And it does. You just kind of have to guess or check. Let's do 16 times 6. 6 times 6 is 36. This gives me 96. So I can probably do another one on there. That would give me 112. So 7 gives me 112. When I subtract, I get an 8. Bring down my 0, I get 80. I know that 16 goes into 85 times. So my answer is 7.5. A negative divided by a negative turns it to a positive. So it's a positive 7.5. Okay, so I'm actually going to skip the other ones if you guys are feeling pretty good about it. What do you guys think? Thumbs up? Okay. I am going to do a couple word problem examples though, because this is good practice. So in letter K, it says if Sandy and her family use 14.95 gallons of gas to drive 358.8 miles, how many miles per gallon did the car get? So one thing is that this problem does give us a clue. It tells us they want to know miles per gallon. So that means I'm going to take the number of miles and I'm going to divide it by the number of gallons to get the per gallon rate. So if I set this up in a division, 358.8 divided by 14.95. Same concept, as just larger numbers that we're dealing with. So on this one, I have to move this 2 places, move this 2 places. I do have to put that 0 on there. And this one might be one that is really helpful to see just written out over again, 35880. Because you're asking how many times does 1400 go into 35,000 now? Totally changes. So we know that 1400 does not go into 3. We know that it does not go into 35. We know that it does not go into 358. We have to guess how many times it goes into 3,588, and I'm going to guess 2. So I'm going to take 1495 times 2. Give me a 10, 18, 19, 8, 9, and 2. And I don't think I could do another one on there. So it goes in there twice, 2990. When I subtract, I get an 8. This becomes a 4. 18 minus 9 is 9. 14 minus 9 is 5. Let me do that one right. 598. Yeah. Okay, and then I'm going to add the 0. I'm going to just guess 1495 times 4. I know I want to end with a 0, so I was thinking of a 5 that would give me that. Gives me a 20. 4 times 9 is 36, 37, 38. 16, 17, 18, 19. 4 times 1 is 4, plus 1 is 5. So it brings us right to our number. So that would be a 4 here. 4 times 1495 is 5980, and I put a 0 there. So that means my answer is 24 miles to the gallon. So even though they might be big, they still come out pretty nice. Okay, and then let's do the last word problem. I think it's just good for you guys to see this. Eric paid $229 to rent a car. The fee was $32.75 per day. How long? So we want to know how many days. That's our question. So you have to take the rent divided by the cost. So the total rent divided by the per day will give you the cost per day. Oh, actually, sorry, we know the cost per day. It'll give you the number of days. Okay, so we are going to take our 229 and we're going to divide it by 32.75. So some of your classmates reacted like, ooh, this is a really ugly one. But as long as you are a good estimator, it's not so bad. So now just to re-visualize this problem, 3275, and our number is 22925. So you're actually working with 22,925. So let's take up some spots. We know that 3,200 does not go into 2, does not go into 22, does not go into 229. It does not even fit into 2,292. So we have to guess how many times does 3,200 go into 22,000? And this is just where some good guesses happen. If I think of this as just 3,000 and I have to get close to 22,000, I would personally guess 7, because 3 times 7 gives me 21. So that's where I start, and that's why. So 3,275 times 7. 7 times 5. So what I did is I went to compatible numbers just to clue you guys in. That gives me a 35. 7 times 7 is 49, plus 3 gives me 52. 14 plus 5 gives me 19. 7 times 3 is 21, plus 1 is 22. So if you look at that, I landed right on my number. So 7 times this is 22925. So our answer is 7 days. So just make sure you guys are showing your work. If you guys need more room on your paper, then make sure to include your scratch paper when you turn in your packet.